one of the interesting things in hypnosis too is that someone will go into another timeline or a parallel reality where they're seeing themselves maybe as married with 4 kids or whatever, but operating in exactly the same time as themselves here. One of the ways it's been explained to me is if you say the oversoul as the palm of your hand, aspects of you are in different timelines, different realities, different dimensions, all operating at the same time. So we're not just this, we're all of this and more. So the children understand that, and that's why they'll say, you know, what he was saying is creating something on the 7th dimension, but they'll also be able to go and revisit other timelines as well. And this is what I like to say to people, this isn't just their reality, this is what we are heading towards ourselves. This is for all of us, even the old, you know, I call us the older models. We've come in as the bridge takers, you know, that we're the ones with a foot in both camps to help with this, but they're the ones that are going to lead the way, teaching us to take that next step to that other part of, you know, our connection to each other. And lots of names, isn't it? There are ascensions, lots of different names, however you understand that.
Thank you for joining us once again on Third Eye Salon. I'm Kat Udero. Welcome back to part 2 of our conversation with Mary Rodwell. If you haven't already, please like, share, subscribe, and click the notification bell for future alerts from YouTube about our video posts. And with that, we'll get back to Mary Rodwell. I just posed a thought to Mary and wanted to get her feedback. Let's see what she says. You know, initially we were talking about contactee. This is a different sort of contactee experience, because when people think about contactee, it's the person who was abducted and it was against their will for so long, then maybe they finally changed their mind and they had a positive relationship with their ET visitors or ET people that were showing up to grab them. And then they have an evolutionary point where they're like, oh, I'm part of them. They're part of my family. And you'll hear that kind of a classic as a classic evolution in someone's experience of being an ET experiencer. And this is a new level of that, because it's like the kids don't have to be like, oh, don't forget about us. Hey, we're going to take you at nighttime so you remember who you are. We know you forget during the day, but you're going to still be connected with us. And this evolution of waking up into, oh, I'm an ET soul and a human experience. This is an extension of my star family. My star family, I'm part of them, and we're exploring Earth through me and through others. It's not a revelation. They come in with it automatically. That's like the hallmark. What do you say about that, Mary?
That's absolutely right. To give you an example of a 10-year-old I spoke to some months ago that explained to me, he came from a planet where he was a blue form, humanoid. He said, this is my very first incarnation on Earth. I've actually chosen a mother that's been here a number of times so she can help me. I'm a center seed. I'm connecting to the center of the planet, and I'm here to deal with the pollution. So that was his understanding of his job. One of them was explaining how consciously he can see interdimensionally. And he sometimes loses track about which one is, the 3D reality and what is the other dimension. One young 7-year-old explained to me that he can go to other planets. He just needs to know their mathematical number, frequency. And he said, I go through the runes, which is a portal that takes me to that number, to the planet I need to go to. So he was quite conscious.
Goes through the runes?
The runes, you know, the
Viking alphabet?
Viking runes, okay. He uses those as a point to be a portal into where he needs to go to a particular planet. But he says, I need to know their mathematical number first, because that's the frequency that he follows to go through into the portals. So this is a whole new reality we're talking about, where they're aware of where they come from. You know, they'll talk about coming from a crystal planet, or they're a dolphin on a water world. And don't you remember, Nanny, you were there with me, for example. this is the awareness that we're talking about. This is their conscious recall of other lives. I always remember the 9-year-old that wanted to talk to me. I was talking to his father in the US, and he said, could I talk to Mary? And I said, yeah, by all means, you know, I'm happy to talk with you. I said, why is it you want to speak to me? And he said, well, Mary, it's because of your frequency. He then explained he was from Orion. He was a light physicist, and he was working on time travel technology, and he was coming to this planet. He said the scientists have no idea here. He explained the nearest was Nikola Tesla. In other words, he said the scientists were a bit dumb. So part of his problem was explaining his understanding. He also mentioned that a lot of the sacred sites he'd gone to with his parents, he got downloads about information when he went to the sacred sites. And his next mission was to go to the pyramids in Egypt, because he said he'll get another download when he goes to the pyramids. He said, of course, the pyramids should be surrounded by pure water. And he said, and with the right consciousness, then it's a portal to other places in the universe, that it acts as a portal is one of the things that it does. But he said you need the right consciousness, and it needs to be surrounded by water. And then it creates the portal that you need to go to wherever you need to go.
Wow. Yeah, it's like these kids understand dimension. I'm going to call it like dimensional language. Like their language is dimensionality. And being able to, that's a great kind of a discovery. Like dimensionality is its own language. Being able to speak dimensions is a thing, because you do it with your whole being. And like the little boy who knew that the runes, if he puts certain runes together, it creates a frequency. That frequency, because of the shape is information. The shape has energy behind it. One rune has so much content within it. And isn't that what you see on the ET ships? They're like, here's a symbol, learn the symbol. The symbol, as soon as you learn it, you get a download of all the things that are inside that symbol. Well, here's a little boy that's come in. He's like, oh, I can read the runes or symbols. This is second nature to me. This is what we do on the ship. We always read rune shapes, because we read shapes because we can read dimensionally. We speak and read dimensionally. So he's able to align those runes in such a manner that it creates an energetic frequency that he's like, oh, that's that planet. That will allow me to dimensionally tune into it better and go there. Does that resonate when I say that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We need to understand these children talk in frequency.
Talk in frequency.
So they understand frequency, because for them, everything is frequency. So this is why we need to listen to the kids, really hear them, because then you'll understand their reality, and then you can work out how best you can support them in that reality. So this, when people say, well, what kind of schools and what have you? And I said, well, it's got to be a place where these children have the freedom to be all they've come here to be. They will tell you what they need. Yes. We make sure that they eat the right food, that, you know, that they're supported in their humanness, in the sense of they've got to be, you know, have the right nutrients. One of the things that I write about in The New Human is also Dr. Olson has developed the ADHD need more vitamin Bs, particularly because they use more of them. They need more of the vitamin B, particularly. There are others like choline. She goes into what needs to support their system, because they're vibrating at a higher frequency. So everything's, when I wrote the book, I said, well, it's no good just explaining it's there. We need to know ways to support that, to, strategies. How can we help them? So I went to educators, and and also those that had worked through this themselves and found what worked, because this is what we need to do, is we need to now find out what helps them. So you look at what their reality is and their experiences, and you're saying, okay, so now how can we help you be grounded in the human, and also for us to teach them how it works down here, but not in a programming way. You've got to learn this data. You've got to, No, that's not what it's about. They know so much more than we'll ever know about our origin, about, who we are, physics and whatever have you. It's not about programming them into our old system of mindset. This is about us reaching out to them to understand, so we can help them come to do what they've come here to do, to support that rather than compromise it.
Yes, oh, sorry. I'm gonna hop in if that's okay. Then I will give you the talking stick, Linda. This happens every time. They need someone to translate this culture to them, because this culture, I have said for decades, the insane asylum is on the outside. Like, if you want sanity, it's going to be in here, because everything else out there is crazy. And they come in, like we all did, just being like, what is going on? Why is it this way? But they don't lose that awareness that this is messed up, and they need someone to translate the human culture of 2020 to their psychology, so they know why people lie. They mean to do well, but they're lying to you because they think it's the right thing to do. It makes no sense. They need someone to break down that the weird constructs that we've created, the weird thought constructs that we've created. They need someone to translate that to them. Exactly.
But before you jump in, Linda, I'll say this. I was talking to a 7-year-old, apart from the fact him telling me that he was visited regularly by Bigfoot, a teenage Bigfoot, and that the granddad was all white. He said to me, I can speak dolphin. Do you want to hear it? And I said, that would be great. So he does all the clicks of the dolphin. He said, and I can tell when people are lying or telling the truth. And I said, so how does that feel? And he said, well, when they're lying, I go all cold. And when they tell the truth, I go all warm. So we've got there, right there, the way this child can look at you and know whether or not, and hear whether or not you're telling the truth or lying to them. This is what I'm talking about. So go, Linda.
So as I'm being more and more exposed to this, and I'm hearing you talk, I think about through the ages, we had oracles and we had healers, and those were the equivalents over those times of star children. But now it's like things are speeding up in quantity, and I kept getting that it's a time for reset. It's a reset button before all of this happened. And is the reset happening because the children happening more frequently because of the time coming for the reset?
Great question.
And the second part of that is technology. Is it a help or a hindrance to these children?
There's 3 things I want to mention. So I'll get into the first one, going back to have they been coming all through history. I did a regression many, many years ago to my daughter's friend who wanted to do a past life. Now, this is when I only really was starting to look into all of this. So this is very early on. So what I'd like to say about that was she went back into a lifetime in medieval times where she was a healer and a wise woman. And I was intrigued, and I said to her, so who taught you to know what herbs, what all the things that you were able to do as a wise woman in your village? And she said, well, I learned all of it in the woods. So I said to her, in the woods, so how did you learn it in the woods? And she said to me, well, I used to meet this little being, this 4-foot little grey being with big black eyes, who showed me what herbs and what plants to use. So make of that what you will, but that's a classic grey. Okay, Zita. All right, so that's going back to past lives, okay? Now, to get to the next bit, recently, about a few weeks ago, I was talking to a 10-year-old that lives not far from me in Australia, and I was talking to him because he was visited, he told me, by light beings, and they came from a planet of light, and he came from a planet of light where he said, you instantly manifest. And he said, the problem with planet Earth is that it takes longer to manifest things, he was explaining to me. In other words, it's more like hard work, he said, to manifest down here because of the density. And I said to him, so what's happening? What do you feel is happening now? And he said, Mary, this is the reset. Okay.
Boom.
Boom.
Right. Now, to get to the technology, I think the technology is to distract these children from the fact they can do everything they can do with technology and more. So if they're focused on technology, they're not focused on working with their higher awareness, because everything gets drawn right back down to 3D programming.
Yeah.
So it's a strategy to shut them down. That's my feeling, okay? It's a strategy by the deep state, whatever name you want to give them, those that want to shut these. They know about these kids. They absolutely know about them.
Oh.
And any strategy to shut them down in any way is what they're going to do, because they know that once they really start expanding with their awareness, ultimately they won't have a leg to stand on. Everything will go.
Yes. Yeah, because once you can see through the lies, once you can see through all the hall of mirrors that we're in, this hall of distorted mirrors that we walk through every day, when you speak frequency, I love that. When you speak frequency, you see that's an illusion, and the illusions can no longer be sustained. Why were they there to begin with? Oh, you're kind of parasitic. Oh, you have a really negative agenda in terms of, well, it's service to self versus service to others. And so that's why you would do that. Okay, but we're calling quits on that. We're not going to do that. Linda heard reset button back in 2016, right when the election was happening, because it was like, what's happening? What's going on? Oh, Trump won, reset button. Like, okay, what that means something, because that's not what we were expecting. We totally thought Hillary Clinton had it in the bag. And so even though he's such a divisive, as soon as you say his name, people are going to stop watching this video, because there are people who are so triggered. We have a video on triggers. We'll put it up here. You guys want to go through the trigger video and learn that it's okay to say words and you can still stay in the conversation. But like, he's coming in, and Linda heard reset, you heard reset. What else have you heard, Mary, about the reset button and this reset time? I think Linda and I both are curious about that. What do the kids say about what that means? What does it look like? Is 5G something that they can handle, or is that part of, are they going to reset that? Like, anyway, I'll shut up and let you answer.
Well, there's two things I want to say about this, and I'm going to go into an Indigenous prophecy for December, which I think is important to add here. But what I will say is, with the children, they've come in, and people are looking often at how everything's being exaggerated and manipulated, and a lot of people are losing heart with how are we going to change this? It seems so dark, and I always say it's the darkness before the dawn. But when they're saying, look what's happening, look at how the kids are being abused, look at all these awful things that are being done, crimes against humanity.
Yes.
Big scale. There's no other word for it.
What'd you say? Sorry.
Crimes against humanity.
Yes. Okay.
So what I say to people is this: all these children that have come from all parts of the galaxies, that some of them are interdimensional, some of them, we've got extra dimensionals, transdimensionals, we've got some coming from our future. And I had one young boy mention that he came from the future, but I won't go into that right now.
Wow.
We've got all these aware souls coming to this planet right now from all over the place with their skills and awareness to make change. Do you think they'd bother if it was for a waste of time? I don't think so. They will know whether it's worth coming or not. and I will say, and I've said this many times, that I know if they'd said to me, Mary, you're going to go and work really hard on that planet, but really sorry, it's not going to make a lot of difference. I'm sorry, I'd have probably said, you know what, I'll give it a miss. Thank you very much. Because I know me. But I want to read this to you. It's a prophecy for this year
Oh,
from
yeah.
the indigenous Australians. Let me just read it briefly. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. On the 21st of December 2020, a magic box that contains a crystal will be opened by 12 indigenous elders at Uluru in Australia. The box contains Pleiadian technology that may or may not release a beneficial frequency that's an emission depending on the goodness of mankind. And it's going to be at Uluru. And this is literally an activator. And if there's enough of us awake, this is how they believe it's going to shift as part of the event for humanity. But that's coming in December.
It's interesting because I've heard this whole, because Mary, you know about the micronova in terms of like the sun doing a solar flare. It's really a micronova. It's something that happens every 12,500 years. It's part of its natural evolution. And so to me, it's like the kids are coming in as a precursor to that to help people through that time as well. That's one of their issues, is like, this is going to happen. We'll be here to help you. And if you're suddenly telepathic at that moment, because this energy is shifted, you'll really be able to hear us and we'll really be able to help you. But then also before that, there's this whole thing about there being a wave that goes through the universe that precedes the micronova. And it's one of those things I'm like, I want that to be true so hard. I want to believe that so hard. And I have different people who say it. So it makes me think, okay, people who don't know each other are reporting this phenomenon. And it makes me think that this wave of Christ consciousness that comes through the planet first, and it helps people get ready for the solar event, to be more prepared on doing something that makes sense and not reacting in fear. And then it's like this box in Uluru, that opening up sounds very parallel. I'm wondering if they're similar, the same, or the two different versions of the same story. What are your feelings?
My feeling is it's all intertwined. We're just different people are getting a different angle on the same thing. That's how I see it. There is definitely a reset. That's what I'm hearing. And one of the things that Dr. Lena Olson, who's also an experiencer as well as a molecular biologist who works with crystals, and she said to me, she said she was shown that we're separating out into two frequencies, low frequency people and high frequency people. Those souls that choose to stay in the 3D this time round. And those that are saying, no, we're ready now to go to that other frequency. And I get a sense of that, because if you look at the polarities that are going on right now, it sort of is right in your face, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, whereas I don't like you, I'm going to shoot you. You know, whatever, you know, color you are, pink or red spots or whatever, I don't like you, so I don't want you in my life. And the others, they're embracing the consciousness of everything, from the animals to the plants to the consciousness within even, you know, crystals or whatever. Because I mentioned that because I have this lovely video of a 6-year-old who's holding a meteorite, and he's saying that the meteorite was quite upset that when he came to the planet, because of where he landed, and talked about its feelings and where it came from. And the mother said, well, how does it communicate with you? And the little boy of 6 said, well, it talks to me in my mind and tells me. So this is challenging all our preconceived and educational programming that says, you can't do this, you can't do that. When everything is energy, everything can contain information. If you do psychometry, you know that. Right. You can pick somebody's, you know, watch or whatever, and you get information about them. I mean, I'm sure, you know, Linda knows what I'm talking about, and yourself, is you can do that. Everyone can do it. That's the thing too. I say to people, this isn't just the odd person here and there that has a gift. I said, we all have the gift. Yeah. You just got to believe it first, you know, because it's there. And this is the problem, is that we're all multidimensional. We all can access this information, and it's time for people to realize that there's nothing that's impossible, only if you believe it to be so.
And do the kids talk about 5D? Is that in their terminology? Do they talk about the difference between 3D and 5D, or how do they see it, explain it, describe it? Because I know sometimes we get into our dogma and we have language for stuff, but like break it open. What do they say? What do they see?
Well, they don't see it as a limit to us for a start, that we go into that new awareness that's more holographic. I think he was 9 that told me this, that he often travels as far as the 9th dimension. He said the greys only go as far as the 6th dimension. He said they can't go any further. He says, but he was actually creating a place in the 7th dimension, a planet where he was actually part of the creator, part of creating the animals and what have you on the 7th dimension. I mean, I don't know how far you want to go into different timelines and whatever, but this is the information. Now, I say to people, when they say, oh, well, it's something he's seen in a cartoon or whatever, I'm saying, no, they don't talk about this kind of thing in cartoons. I'm sorry, they just don't.
No, like I'm a comic book kind of like more the movies and the comics these days, but when I was a kid, I loved comics. So all that type of sci-fi stuff. But when you're like, oh, the 7th dimension is where you go to create a planet, and that's something that you do as a collective, from a 7-year-old, that's such a complex understanding of that reality. And you try to translate it down into this reality, and it sounds crazy, but it's because we speak so linearly, we don't speak frequency, so someone else could tune into it psychically and be like, oh, I see how that works. Like I can pull the threads of what you're saying and I can witness it. And it's just something I had never thought of before.
Well, the creative, those that I've done regressions with, some of them have identified that creator part of them. And I always remember one really interesting one where a graphic designer was describing to me, he was like a grey ET, but not the classic Zeta. And he said, we're moving something big from one dimension to another. And then he said, it's a planet and we've moved it too quickly and we're now going to have to sort out its energy. So literally moving planetary forms from one dimension to another. Now make of that what you will. But again, what I say to people is we don't know what we don't know. We don't know what's impossible or possible. And probably everything we thought was impossible is more than possible and beyond what we think is possible. Yes. We just don't know. So how can you say, well, that's not possible? How do you know? Do you know how it all works? Because I certainly don't.
Again, that's what science is. It's, you're looking in the dark. You're getting one bit of information at a time. You don't see it all to the end, because what's the point of discovery? What do you want to say, Linda? I don't want to keep hopping in because I know that you've got something to ask.
I do. So one of the questions I have I have so many people that I talk to that say, I want to increase my abilities. I want this. How do you do that? Or how do I increase my ability? What have you learned from your experiences to help give that guidance to people?
It's a good one. And I'm sure you've got certain ways that you assist them to recognize what's different from their physical reality to their multidimensional reality. And, there's a protocol that I have that I was given to help them go to a new frequency so they could tap into more of their non-physical world. But first of all, the desire to want to expand, because you're putting that out to your superconscious self. And you're saying, I'm really ready now, guys. I really want to know more of what's going on. The way that I explain everything is really very simple, because I'm a simple soul. And one of the things I say is, you've got your left brain, which is your logic and your analytical side. Your right brain is your multidimensional. Now, this is hard, but it's easy. It's hard because you've got to shut down left brain, but it's easy because you don't have to think, because it comes in before thought. And that is the basis of it. And people say to me, well, how do I know it's not my imagination? Simply because it's a different process. And I explain that, if you talk about your bedroom, you know what your bedroom looks like. It's a reality. There's the window, there's the door, there's my bed. If I ask you in trance, or when you're tapping into whatever it is that you're seeing, it will come in without thought. It will come in instantly into your awareness as a feeling, as a sense, as a knowing, or as an image, and what have you as well. So what I was grateful for my 3 years of exploring all of this was, I will tell you right now, I went into it thinking I was far too normal to ever be able to do any of this, because I was just too normal, wasn't I? That was my perception of Mary, until I had a number of experiences where information was coming and I had absolutely no idea where this information was coming, other than I sensed it. Well, I felt it was my guides or my teachers, but it got to the point where there was no way I could imagine what this information that was coming through. I say to people when they start out, go into a meditative state and talk to that other wise part of you, or your angels, or whatever you feel comfortable with, you spirit guides, or whether you see you super conscious, whatever it is, and with just one question, and ask them what you need to do to expand more of your abilities and your awareness. Some may say go and do healing, go and learn Reiki or whatever, because that's a way of opening yourself up. Some may have a shamanic wake up call or whatever that will allow them to do that. It's the desire, it's the intent, and then from that the teacher will always appear. You know that as well, Linda. You know that you have obviously got a wonderful way of explaining your process and whatever. I've got my way, which is really very simple, and I said it's really about honoring that information that comes in spontaneously, that you know that you haven't analyzed or whatever. And for me, I don't have to go into trance. If they want me to say something, it will just come straight through, and it will be part of my flow, because now it's very much part of me. It's not a separate part of me. It's not over there. It's not over there. It's right here. And it's part of the way that I operate. And sometimes when I'm talking, they'll just add some words in. I'll think, oh, well, that's good. That was obviously meant to be, or whatever. It's sort of like, okay, guys, I will tell you an interesting one, because I do argue a little bit with them if they give me something really bizarre. And I say, you realize I've got to retain a certain credibility here, by the way. My screen is sort of here. So sometimes they'll show me very quickly a past life of somebody. And I remember arguing once and saying, I can't say that. I can't prove it. And they're saying to me, just say it, because you'll get the right response, you see. So of course I said it, and she said, oh, that makes so much sense. And it's like, I test them all the time to make sure it's accurate, it's valid, it has integrity, it has all those things, and now you've got to prove it to me. So I don't, I've not been an easy one for them. But the bottom line is for you just to know that you are already tapped in, that, it's just a matter of wanting and having that intent, and asking them to prove things too. If you get information, or if you get some intuitive understanding, does it resonate? Does it, how, I'm sure you get it all the time, Linda, is the buzz, and it's, oh
yeah,
all right, got it. Or you look down and it's 11:11, or it's 22:22, or and you're, okay, I've got it. Okay, so there's all these different synchronicities, coincidences that start to happen when you open up. But the desire is the main thing. The desire to connect, and then your superconscious self will create the circumstances for that to happen. But it isn't brain surgery. It really isn't. It's so natural to us if we allow ourselves to go there. So I don't know if that's said it all, but that's roughly how I understand it.
I think that, go ahead, Linda.
Oh, I was just gonna, that really does make a lot of sense. And yes, I get the zinging in the back of, I say my crown is turned this way, back here. And yeah, it was my clients that actually said, when you should really tell people when you do that thing that you do.
Yeah.
I had no idea. And I said, yeah, you just kind of look through me like you're hearing something. It's really disconcerting. You need to tell people that you're doing that. And I had no idea I say, oh yeah, you say something that's really profound. It's like, so obviously I don't say anything that's profound other than that.
Well, do you know the thing, Linda, that I queried with them? I said to them, you know, I can't prove everything that I'm saying to that person because it's, you know, it's come through intuitively. So how do I know it's got integrity? And they said to me this: say what comes through for them. Now, that person has the choice, like they do with advice, with any other thing. They'll either take it or leave it. That's up to them. You are offering your understanding, your awareness, your etc. They then have a choice whether or not, oh, that resonates, that doesn't resonate. And we've all known that. We go and see someone and sometimes it's a best friend and what they say just doesn't make sense. And another time it does. They said it's no different. It's no different. You're giving them intuitively what you feel is correct, but it's up to them. You're not saying you've got to believe it. You're not saying to them, you've got to take it on board or anything. You're just offering information that they can choose to accept or reject. And then I felt a lot happier about that.
Well, yeah, it puts the responsibility back on them, which is where it belongs. And sometimes you tell somebody something and it doesn't resonate for them in that moment. And it's for later, you know. And I think time and again, you just can't get caught up in how people react. You did your job by saying what you saw, and that was your job. That was the beginning and the end of your job. You can't caretake the person after they get the information. That's where they have to do their adulting and decide if that's real and what they want to do with it if it is.
What I prefer to do, and this is what I do more of, is I say, you can do what I can do. Let me show you.
Yeah.
Because then I say, you don't need me anymore after that. Off you go. Now, because really, in the end, we're all meant to be doing this. It's not for just certain people. It's for all of us.
Absolutely.
To be tuned in. So I do far more of let me show you how it works. You know, let me show you how to ride the bike. I'll show you where the brakes are and the lights are and what have you. I'll give you a map and off you go because you can do this. So that's far more preferable way to work than someone that's just there as some kind of, you know, support. But I prefer to see them ride the bike rather than just me.
Well, yeah, that's the empowerment piece.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm wondering, what do the kids say? You know, like we talked about what they said from 3D to 5D. What do they say about timelines? Do the kids talk about timelines and shifting of the timelines, merging of the timelines? Again, there are different camps and different beliefs about what that means and what that looks like. What do the kids say? What, you know, their experience of timelines? What have they taught you?
Well, the more and more, there's no such thing as time as such. That's the first thing. That's a construct.
Yeah.
Okay, so for them, you know, they can operate in one of the interesting things in hypnosis too is that someone will go into another timeline or a parallel reality where they're seeing themselves maybe as married with 4 kids or whatever, but operating in exactly the same time as themselves here. One of the ways it's been explained to me is if you say the oversoul as the palm of your hand, aspects of you are in different timelines, different realities, different dimensions, all operating at the same time. So we're not just this, we're all of this and more. So the children understand that, and that's why they'll say, you know, what he was saying is creating something on the 7th dimension, but they'll also be able to go and revisit other timelines as well. And this is what I like to say to people, this isn't just their reality. This is what we are heading towards ourselves. This is for all of us, even I call us the older models. We've come in as the bridge takers, you know, that we're the ones with a foot in both camps to help with this. But they're the ones that are going to lead the way, teaching us to take that next step to that other part of, you know, our connection to each other. And lots of names, isn't it? There are ascensions, lots of different names, however you understand that.
They can see that timelines do merge or split. Like, have they talked about that? Timelines merging and splitting? Is that part of the reset, or what have you heard?
I've not heard that.
Okay.
I've not heard, but I will say that one 12-year-old ADHD, actually, he told me that when he came to this planet, I don't know, something like 27 lifetimes prior, he was on the moon, and they'd left something on the moon that dealt with human consciousness. And he said, and we left that on the moon. He also said that we've been at this place at least 3 times before, but he said this time, he said, it's 95% surety that we will actually reach that next level, was the way that he understood it.
That's beautiful. Again, that thing of, I'm not going to come here for no good reason. I'm going to come here because the odds are good. I'm invested because the odds are good.
Yeah, exactly.
So with 5G coming in, there's a lot of very diametrically opposed opinions about 5G and how it affects us or doesn't affect us. And recently I heard that the kids that are coming in are going to be adaptable to it. Is it, what are you hearing? What's your understanding?
Even though on one level it's supposed, they're saying it's a frequency that's going to be very, very damaging, probably to the older models. What I think the children coming in, because they know exactly what's ahead, have come in, a lot of them will be able to heal themselves. They'll have the ability to affect their molecular structure and what have you, as long as they don't get too shut down in the process. So this is why, again, the more we can support them while they're gaining their full awareness and connecting to that, I think this is the transitionary period where we've really got to do our best to support that. But I think that whatever ultimately is being thrown at them won't make a difference. I think eventually they'll have the awareness to actually not only heal themselves, but to heal others. And we know that a lot of them coming in as empaths, as healers. The hardest thing at the moment, though, is those adults that are being activated and are starting to perceive and connect to that collective consciousness. They're the ones that are struggling the most, because I was talking to a gentleman only recently who gets downloads of physics, huge amounts in terms of the truth, but he's saying, the difficulty now, Mary, is I can't operate in 3D hardly. He said, because it's so painful. He says, I'll look at an object, for example, and he will say to me, I will see where that object came from, and it may have been some poor child that's 6 years old in Thailand or whatever, and I feel the pain of that. So it's almost like everything is too hard to handle, that when you understand the origins of where things have come from and how people are treated on this planet. And so that hypersensitivity is the difficult one until things change. It's managing that. It's managing to keep a certain integrity and a balance with all of that. I always say, in counseling, one of the things we were taught was when we are counseling someone going through huge trauma, important to only dip your toe in and not jump into it, because if you do, you're as disabled as your client. And I think this is what they're needing to be helped with, is to manage the sensitivities that they're experiencing until things change, because the empaths are really, really struggling. I remember a young man who was talking to me, Zach in the book, and he was saying to me, when he was 10 or 11, he was talking about his experiences to his family, and they all, they basically said to him, we don't want to hear anymore. We're fed up of you talking about all this weird stuff. Just get normal, get real, get into our reality. And he said, Mary, I tried. I shut everything down and I tried to be in 3D. He said, and I became so depressed, I considered taking my life. And he said, the only way I could stay here was to open up again. He said, but when I went to school, I would pick up on a child who was abused, a child that was having this going on or whatever. He said it was so painful to go to school because of what I picked up from people. So that's what we have to be aware of as well, is just what are they picking up? How sensitive are they? And how can we help them to help themselves to cope until things change?
I think that I see that with people I care about that I think are very, very hypersensitive, but don't know it, don't know how to process it. And I think that there's a huge amount of depression that is caused from that hypersensitivity of input, of, you know, picking things up from the news or from, and just hyper focusing on that is actually somebody who's hypersensitive, but doesn't have the skills yet to know how to deal with it. So advice for those people.
Again, if you listen, you can say to them, okay, so let's go to that wise part of you to find out what do you need to do so that you can actually protect yourself from some of those frequencies. What do you need to create or bring in? Because they will have it. They will have somewhere in their toolbox something, and just giving them the way to connect the dots to themselves and their own awareness so they can trust it enough to create that field, whatever that field looks like to them or whatever. Because they will know. There'll be a part of them that knows. It was like, I was talking to a 9-year-old about a year ago who clears negative energies. And he was telling me that he had lots of these negative energies. He was taught how to clear them. He says, I go out of body at night and I go to where children are being disturbed by these energies and I just clear them because I was shown how to do it. So he's doing all of that at 9 years old, going astrally, going and sorting it. And then that was his nightly job, he said, was to do that. Okay. So it's just about, we all need this in a way. It's almost like permission and encouragement to know we can do this because we can. And like I was saying, you can do what I can do and probably you could do it a lot better than me. So it's about giving them the encouragement to trust in that part of themselves. I said, because we've come in with all the tools we need, because otherwise it would be illogical, wouldn't it? I said, there's no point in our soul coming into a reality without the tools we need to deal with it. The trouble is we sometimes lose the confidence and the understanding that we have those tools in the first place. So let's find them and to encourage that individual to do that.
I was going to say, I appreciate you giving the language for us to do that.
Yeah, I feel like you're giving us permission, you're giving us a template, and I think that is our job as light family, is we're all one, connected to each other, is to hold space for that person. And even if you're like, how can I help you? What would be useful if I did to provide you support so you can access this information? Just being willing to what we call hold space. It's so real because then that person feels safe and they're able to slow down and start to access their natural knowing because someone's given them a safe place to do it. And the bombardment has stopped or slowed down at least.
I think for me, the most empowering thing was when I went to learn all of my intuitive skills. And I remember thinking, I'm going to be watching everyone be amazing, but I'm probably only going to be watching because there's no way in a month of Sundays I'm going to be able to do any of that. And it was a revelation to me that I'd stand there and think, well, I suppose my guide's probably there with any luck. And then this stuff would come out my mouth. And it was the belief, it was the fact, the confidence that my teacher had in the fact we were all there because we were all going to do it. There was no question that there was any of us going to be left out here. And that was enough. It was enough to know someone knew or believed in that awareness was there. And that's all I needed. And I say to people, think about it. When you're I've done a lot of past life regressions and you get the person that's coming out of one life and you say, what did you learn in that life? And they'll tell you, I learned compassion or limits, what limits were or whatever. And as they're coming into the new life, picking their parents, picking their siblings, creating the challenges, the spiritual challenges that they can grow from or whatever. You don't do that without the tools. because it's pointless otherwise. And, you know, I'd say, as Spock says, you know, that's illogical. And it's absolutely illogical for you to come into a reality and have these challenges and experiences without the tools. But you need to sometimes get to a point where you're challenged enough, but having that truth within you, that understanding you're your own healer, your own teacher, your own student, it's all there. You don't need pieces of paper to show you that you can do this stuff. This is one time where it's already, you've got the pieces of paper because you gave them to yourself. So it's about, when I worked with counseling, the one thing that we did was not have judgment, but also honor the fact the person finds their own answers to their own problems if you give them the love and the care and the space without judgment to do so.
Amen. Well said. I just want to stand up and applaud that. I feel like that was so succinct. I've got one other big question, and that is, in your experiences, I know that you were sent light language, you hear light language, you're given light language codes, you visually people draw things. How has that impacted you? Are you aware of how that's impacted you? Do you suddenly start getting new downloads? How do you deal with these downloads? Like, because all of these light codes are, they are downloads. Like all of those symbols, those glyphs, all of that is communication, and you're a recipient of it probably more than anybody else because you're a safe person to give it to. How do you experience that, receiving that, processing that?
Oh, we're going to get into the weird again. More weird. First of all, yes, you're right. I have been sent hundreds of pages. I've heard all sorts of different light languages and whatever. And there has been the occasional one. Well, one that a lady spoke to me where I can't describe the feeling that I had, other than this huge, deep, profound emotion that stayed with me for several days afterwards. Not with all of them, but this was a specific one. And I still can go there and feel that emotion, and I can't even describe it to you. But I remember saying to the team, all this, the scripts, the symbols, the languages, what am I supposed to do with them? Because I can only show a very small amount in a presentation. I can't show all of this. And there were two things that they guide me to what I add to my presentations. I have seen the effect that they have in a presentation where I've had one was a nurse who after the presentation suddenly started writing script immediately after the presentation. She'd never done it before in her life. So it triggers. But one of the things that I was told, and this is going to sound really, really weird, is so they said, Mary, when you see it, it becomes part of your energy field. Everything you view becomes everything you hear becomes part of your energy field. So that wherever you go, it is being disseminated to those around you, to anyone that comes as part of that, you know, whether or not you're speaking, whether they're around you, like the virus, it just goes out. And I actually gave them a hard time. And I said, that sounds ridiculous. Come on, guys. Come on. How can I possibly believe that? You know, because I give them a hard time. So Mary will show you. It was less than a week. I was at a conscious expo, sitting on a panel. I wasn't actually saying a great deal. A lady in the audience stood up and said, Mary, I've got to tell you this. She said, you're sitting there and you're barely saying anything, but you're beaming out all these frequencies to the audience. And she said, because I can feel them. And that was it. So I had my validation because that was so weird. So now I understand we all do it. Every one of us, as soon as we're exposed to certain information frequencies, it's in your energy field. You become a hard drive. And people who are ready will access it. Those that are ready for those frequencies will just take it from you. Wherever you go, in the supermarket, whether you go, wherever you go, you are disseminating those frequencies. And if they're ready for them, then they will access those frequencies. That's how it's happening. It's not just what we say, it's what we are.
It's our frequency.
Yes.
It's literally, we are light workers by nature. We don't have to lay hands on somebody to do our light working work. It
That's
just
right.
is a byproduct of us resonating, taking in and resonating out this higher communication, these higher frequencies, whether it's your guides or you get it from looking at light language and being able to hear it, channel it, whatever, all of it counts. All of it is part of the same continuum.
Exactly. Exactly. Everything you write in my books, the frequencies there, people have picked up the book and said, I can feel the frequencies. And they've just picked the book up. So it's not just reading it. It's not just hearing it. It is actually a frequency that we bring to our energy fields that is then available not only to us, but to others that are ready for it.
Amazing. That's such a relief. What a thing for people to take in and feel good about, that you're doing your work no matter what. You're sleeping, you're doing your work. You're buying your groceries, you're doing your work. You're already doing it. You're enough. You're enough. You're enough. You know?
Yeah, didn't we say last week, you're doing the work while you're doing your work?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to actually be the work that you do.
Yeah, you do the work by showing up. It's not what you do, it's how you do it. And it's a frequency that you carry when you're doing whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And speaking of what you're doing,
yeah,
I have one last question for you, Mary. If someone wants to work with you, they need to come to you, or do you do things with people, have sessions with people remotely?
We live in a quantum universe. Of course, we can use technology for that. I do hypnosis. I do connecting to their team. All of this can be over the internet. So the great thing is I live in a lovely little market, a little tourist town in the middle of Queensland, but I can work with you if you're in Uruguay, whether you're in Hungary, as long as you can speak English. That is the only criteria, because I'm not universal in my language yet. That's the only criteria. But yes, I can work with anyone, no matter where they are, as long as they speak English.
Fantastic.
Fabulous.
All right. Well, Mary, we're going to wrap it up there, just because if I don't, it will be into the wee hours of the morning by the time I want to stop talking with you. Bless you for your work. I see you. I appreciate you. I'm so grateful for you. I'm so honored that you're joining me and Linda in this conversation. I'm honored to be one of what I hope you will consider an ally in bringing the work forward to the world and helping the kids feel safe so they can be exactly who they are, so they can teach us love and we can create a new planet, higher frequency. I just have nothing but appreciation and gratitude for you being with us today. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you, Linda. It's been an absolute pleasure. And thank you both for giving your time and energy for doing this work, because it's so important right now. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm so appreciative of you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. If you haven't already, please, you see how amazing these conversations are. Please subscribe, share, hit the notification bell, and help us co-create this community so we can have real, authentic, and healing conversations like this all the time. Thank you, everyone, for showing up, for being with us. We appreciate you. We love you. Have a great one.